poems like
Thank you very much. The Oedipus Colonus is a very long play. It's one of the longest we have, and it would take more than 2 hours to stage without any cuts. So, of course, we did not impose a 2-hour spectacle on you tonight. We will not impose a 2-hour spectacle on you tonight, rather. And the show will last 75 minutes. That means that we have had to take away quite a few scenes. And we thought it would be interesting to start by saying a few words about those scenes that will not be staged, that will not be read tonight. 2 of the passages, the most important passages that are not part of tonight's staging, as you can see on the program, are the interlude 1 and interlude 2 as they are presented there. That is verses 117 to 282 of the play and verses 510 to 548 of the play, presented as interlude 1 and interlude 2. Those 2 passages are interesting in that they are very similar to each other. In both places you have Oedipus explaining what he has done, explaining what has led to his exile, explaining what crimes he's committed, how he has come to such a level of wretchedness, and describing his crimes, describing his responsibility for what he has done, and hinting at why he is there. So in a way you have Oedipus describing Oedipus, Oedipus presenting himself. And you could think that it's perfectly appropriate to take them out because we know Oedipus. We all know who Oedipus is. We all know what his story is. And that element of the play is not necessary to our understanding of the entire plot. It's interesting to keep in mind that the ancients also thought they knew who Oedipus was. They also had a fairly clear idea of what the character Oedipus represented and what his story was. A good passage to keep in mind is a fragment from the comic poet Antiphanes that says, "Tragedy is a blessed art in every way, since its plots are well known to the audience before anyone begins to speak. A poet need only remind in tragedy. I have just to say Oedipus, and they know all the rest. Father Laius, mother Jocasta, their sons and daughters, what he will suffer, what he has done." You name Oedipus, and the entire background of the story and the entire future of the plot is already in the mind's eye of the audience. That is opposed to what the comic poet has to do, creating a world out of nothing without having recourse to the web of myth. A very interesting comparison of tragedy and comedy here, and a very interesting provocation and form of braggadocio, you could say, against a tragedy from the point of view of a comic poet, but not something that corresponds to what actually was happening on the tragic stage when you mentioned Oedipus, not something that corresponds to the way the audience actually reacted to Oedipus, because Oedipus could change from presentation to presentation. You had as many Oedipuses as you had plays, as you had poets, as you had spectacles. In some poems, in some works, Oedipus died in Thebes. In some works, Oedipus did not have children with his mother, but he had children with another woman called Euryganeia. In some versions, Jocasta blinds herself. In some versions, she kills herself after the death of her sons. In some versions, Oedipus is not exiled. In some versions, he is carrying a curse that goes back 2 generations, long before the birth of his father, and so on and so forth. And in other versions, the elements are not presented at all. So the tragic poet had to flesh out his Oedipus, had to present us exactly with the exact contours of the Oedipus he was about to stage. And in those two scenes, interlude 1 and interlude 2, you have just that. You have Oedipus explaining to the chorus and to other characters and to the audience who he is, what he has done, what are the contours of his story, and what state of mind he is in. And the picture you get in those scenes is particularly striking. You have Oedipus fuddling his answers. You have Oedipus presenting muddy, confused speech full of contradictions, blatant lies, and presenting a very ambiguous spectacle of responsibility to the audience. You have an Oedipus shaped by what we might describe as anger and resentment there. And you have an Oedipus shaped by a very particular emotional state and understanding of the meaning of his own story and of his place in myth. And that Oedipus is very much in contrast with the various other facets of the character that we will see unfold later on in the play, until finally we reach a state of exaltation and we reach a form of communion with the divine. And so that particular Oedipus, and that Oedipus shaped by contrast between absolute wretchedness and formidable power, between the most vile form of pollution you can imagine and the promise of great use to the city, that Oedipus is very much presented as a contrast to the one we will see evolve. And that aspect of the play that we have taken out of the production here is an element that we could describe as movement of character change, of character and movement evolution within the definition of the character and his understanding of his place. And movement is what has had to be taken out, has had to be most radically reduced in this production for a variety of reasons, as you can imagine. And movement has had to be reduced also in terms of what the chorus can do here. And so I think it's important to keep in mind that the chorus would be a very mobile presence, would be a dancing collective, would be involved in song, would be involved in various forms of singing, would be dancing at the sound of flute music, very strident pipe music, and that this aspect of movement has also had to be taken out of the play. And it's not only an absence, but it's actually something that had to be translated through other means. And that is one of the particularly interesting and exciting aspects of this production, the fact that those elements, such as the interlude 1 and interlude 2, or the movement of the chorus, the fact that they have had to be taken out has presented us with the possibility of hinting at their presence through other means. And the two means at our disposal here are the sound of violins and the images on the screen. And everything that is absent will be translated by the dialogue of music and image that will be constantly present behind the reading of the actors. And I think this is one of the very fascinating elements of today's production, this translation of absence into image and sound. One of the scenes that will be presented through image and sound is the Praise of Athens that is found in verses 848 to 83 in the original text. Another passage that is not present in today's spectacle, the Praise of Athens, will be represented through a glorious image of the city, an allusion to its walls, to its power, and through very uplifting music that in a way hints at the gifts of the city, the power of civilization that Athens symbolizes in that particular song, the gifts that Athens has received from the gods, the gift of the olive tree, the gift of sailing, of the bridle that allows man to domesticate the animal, and the topography of cult and civilization in which Oedipus will finally come to be integrated. And that evocation of the Praise of Athens through image and music will be a fantastic translation of these scenes. So we are able to condense many hundreds of lines with a few minutes of music here. And that is one of the aspects of the production that allows us to replace movement in a reading. The same is true for those scenes that in the stage production would involve massive movement of actors, would involve combat, would involve conflict, the kidnapping of the daughters of Oedipus, the retrieval of the daughters, scenes of immense dynamism in a stage production will here be translated against through the dynamism of music and the power of images. This form of translation, this operation, is what starts tonight's production with an evocation of place. The very first moment, the prelude, is an evocation of the terrible grove in which the action takes place, of the power of that place, and the profound, deep, and mysterious religious associations that they carry, the grove of the august goddesses, the Semnae Dei, the grove of these goddesses of vengeance, these goddesses of dread power, these goddesses of protection that are a constant presence in the play, that are such a parallel figure to the role of Oedipus himself from beginning to end. And right with the first note, we will be transported already to that place, and the very strange Oedipus, the very unfamiliar Oedipus that enters into it. An Oedipus that is as unfamiliar to us as he would be to an audience with the very first words coming out of his mind. And I very much look forward to meeting him. So with that being said, I leave the stage to the actors.